Hello! Hi! Magandang buhay! This is Cesar Jane Ilabas from TM1A speaking, and we are here today to introduce to you to some of the topics in relation to our previous discussion on accommodation and other tourism services. But before we start, do you have any idea what SDG means? That's right! SDG means the Sustainable Development Goals. So, let me introduce to you the Sustainable Development Goals as well as the other topics in relation to our accommodation and other tourism services. Let's go! So let's talk about Goal 1. So Goal 1, or No Poverty, seeks to eradicate extreme poverty and support vulnerable groups. How about Goal 2? Goal 2, or Zero Hunger, aims to achieve food security and promote sustainable agriculture. Let's hop on to Goal 3. Goal 3, or Good Health and Well-Being, ensures access to essential health services and reduce mortality. Next is Goal 4. Goal 4, or Quality Education. It guarantees inclusive and equitable learning opportunities for everyone. Meanwhile, Goal 10 calls for reduced inequalities within and among nations. Goal 11 builds sustainable cities and communities. Goal 12 promotes responsible consumption and production. Goal 13 urges climate action to address global warming. Goal 14 protects life below water, while Goal 15 safeguards life on land through ecosystem restoration and biodiversity. According to the UN's latest reports, none of the SDGs are fully on track for 2030. This shows us that stronger collaboration, greater funding, and active participation from every sector are urgently needed to transform these goals into reality. So one last question here. What do you think these SDGs are in terms of tourism? Because according to the United Nations World Tourism Organization, tourism, particularly accommodation and related services, plays a critical role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So for example, tourism establishments create jobs and drive economic growth, directly supporting Goal 8 on decent work and economic growth. How about this is another example. So when hotels adopt energy efficient system and reduce waste, they contribute to Goal 7 on affordable and clean energy, and Goal 12 on responsible consumption and production. Sustainable tourism practices also protect natural resources, aligning with Goal 13 on climate action, Goal 14 on life below water, and Goal 15 on life on land. Furthermore, by promoting local culture, equality in hiring, and community engagement, the tourism sector advances Goal 5 on gender equality and Goal 11 on sustainable cities and communities. In this way, tourism accommodation and services are not just part of economy, but also key drivers on inclusive and sustainable development across multiple SDGs.
Good day, everyone. I will be presenting the Global Code of Ethics for Tourism. This code outlines 10 important principles that address the economic, social, cultural, and environmental aspects of travel and tourism. First, tourism promotes understanding between people and societies. It fosters tolerance and respect for diversity. Second, it supports both individual and collective well-being and fulfillment. Tourism encourages personal and societal growth through learning and understanding. Third, tourism should foster sustainability and development. This means protecting our natural heritage and the environment. Fourth, it respects and enhances cultural heritage. Tourism should help protect and preserve traditions and culture for future generations. Fifth, tourism must benefit host communities. Local communities should share fairly in the benefit of tourism, especially through job creations. Sixth, all stakeholders bear ethical responsibilities. This includes tourism professionals, businesses, and investors who must act responsibly. Seventh, everyone has a right to tourism. It recognizes the fundamental right of all people to enjoy leisure travel. 8. Tourists should enjoy freedom of movement. This upholds the freedom to travel without unnecessary barriers. 9th, workers and entrepreneurs in tourism deserve rights and fair treatment. Their contributions to the industry must be valued and protected. And 10th, the implementation of these principles is essential. Tourism policies and actions must reflect and apply these values in practice. In conclusion, the Global Code of Ethics for Tourism serves as a guide to ensure that travel and tourism not only enrich our lives, but also promote respect, fairness, and sustainability for all.
Good day everyone, I'm here to discuss about the tourist behavior and motivation. According to Sian Heitman, the studies on travel behavior and tourism motivation concentrate on the tourist and the decision-making process through which they go when booking a holiday. Consumer behavior is essential here as it gives information on the stages that the tourist goes through before booking and how the tourist background informs the decision made. What travel behavior theorists explain how tourists behave and in what kind of activities they participate while on holiday. Tourism motivation theorists seek to answer why tourists travel and the underlying psychological process. While these seem simple enough questions, discussions and theories are wide and varied. There is no universally accepted theory, but several frameworks have been offered to understand consumer behavior, travel behavior, and tourism motivation. At a personal level, no two individuals are alike and there are significant differences in attitude, perceptions, and motivations. An individual perception of traveling depends on the individual's perception of the world, but is further determined by a range of external factors such as their childhood, family, and the media, as well as the wider social and cultural influences.
Tourism is one of the Southeast Asia's fastest growing industries. In 2024, it contributed about 12.9% in the Philippines' GDP according to the Philippine Statistics Authority 2025. Thailand's economy also relies on tourism for recovery and growth according to World Bank 2023. Both countries benefit from these services like hotels, resorts, travel agencies, and leisure facilities, not only within the tourism industry but also in other sectors. Accommodation and tourism services creates a multiplier effect benefiting people not working directly in tourism. For example, the transport workers like jeepney and tricycle drivers. They earn more when the number of tourists rises. Our local artists and craftsmakers gain income, and our farmers, fishers, and food vendors are the ones who supply the resorts and hotels. Also, according to Cors Iglesias et al. 2023, agritourism boosts rural economies by revaluing local food products. First, we have the SDG 8, where it promotes decent work and economic growth through job creations. We also have SDG 11, where it supports sustainable cities and communities like the ecotourism in Bohol and Palawan. And lastly, the SDG 12, it encourages us to have responsible consumption by sourcing products locally. So to sum up, both the tourism of Philippines and Thailand creates economic, social, and environmental benefits far beyond the travel sector.
Tourism and accommodation services do more than provide travel experiences. They help reduce social isolation. Studies in Europe shows that tourism activities can ease loneliness, especially among older adults. In Asia, homestays and guest houses create spaces where visitors and locals connect, reducing exclusion. Globally, the UN highlights that sustainable tourism supports health, reduces inequalities, and build inclusive communities. With technology, smart, and even virtual tourism now fosters social connections beyond physical level. In the end, tourism isn't just about places, it's about people and the connections that make the community stronger.
Now, let's proceed with the key barriers faced by travelers. The first one is physical and infrastructure barriers. Travelers with disabilities face major challenges due to poorly designed or maintained environments, such as broken lifts, narrow doorways, and inaccessible bathrooms. Lack of adapted transport options restricts independent mobility and spontaneity, increasing independence on others. Next, information and communication barriers. Accessing clear, consistent information about accessibility in hotels, transport, and attractions is often difficult. Inaccessible websites, limited signage, and absence of alternative formats like braille or audio guides hinder travel planning and on-site navigation. Attitudinal and behavioral barriers. Lack of awareness and training among staff alongside discriminatory or impatient behaviors lead to inadequate support and feelings of exclusion for disabled travelers. So, misuse of accessible facilities further worsens these challenges. Transport and connectivity barriers. Limited barrier-free transport options between locations reduce accessibility. While paratransit services exist, they can be costly and socially isolating and impeding inclusive travel experiences. Service and operational barriers. Restricted service hours, long booking times, and poor contingency plans limit flexibility and frustrate disabled travelers, reducing satisfaction with tourism services.
Good day, everyone. Mabuhay. I am Riona Raisa Espinosa, your guide as we talk about tourism phobia. As we all know that phobia is the word to describe the uneasiness or anxiousness of a person in certain situations and scenarios. But what about tourism phobia, and where did this terminology start to exist? Starting from Spain, facing tourism and tourist problems, the term tourism phobia has been used as their way to describe their experience with the discontentment of the reviews of their local residents of their tourist activities due to the negative tourist impact on their environment. This develops tourism phobia as to be defined as a social rejection towards visitors of one's country.
Mabuhay! I am Alea Moreno and let's proceed to the African American history. The history of African Americans began in the early 1600s when Africans were brought to the American colonies. At first, some arrived as indentured servants, but over time, most were forced into slavery. By the 1700s, slavery was deeply rooted in American society and became a major part of the economy, especially in the South. Enslaved people suffered harsh treatment and were denied basic freedoms, but they held into their culture, built strong communities, and found ways to resist oppressions. Even after slavery was abolished in 1965, African Americans continued to face serious challenges. Segregation laws, racism, and violence limited their rights and opportunities. Despite this, they worked to strengthen their communities by building schools, churches, and organizations. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s marked a turning point with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. leading the right for equality and achieving important victories such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. African Americans remain an important part of shaping the United States. They have made major contributions in politics, art, music, literature, sports, and social change. While racial inequality still exists, their history shows resilience, strength, and the ongoing struggle for justice and equal rights in American society.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Micaela Cruz from TM1A, and now let's discuss the African American stigma, or the stigma between white Americans and African Americans and its present scenarios. So, the interaction between black and white Americans are shaped by the history, stigma, and unfair treatment. So, stigma, it means being judged badly because of race, and it still affects how these groups see and treat each other. So, according to the researchers, it is important in tourism where people of different races meet and share experiences. In addition, according to Santos 2023b, African American should be called as African American because this term refers to specifically people born in the United States with the ancestry from Africa. Black is a broader racial term that is include people from many places, not just from the US. It is important to recognize these differences and respect individual preferences when referring to identity. African American continue to face discrimination. According to Brennan and Saad 2025, about 83% of black adults say that racism is common, especially in police encounters, healthcares, jobs, and shoppings. Harmful stereotypes being seen as dangerous create fear, mistrust, and fewer opportunities. Stigma also affects mental health care. Despite progress, discrimination still shapes daily life.
Peers explain that people travel for two main reasons. The first is relaxation, the need to rest, reduce stress, and escape daily routines. Examples are going to the beach, staying at a resort, or simply having a quiet time. The second is stimulation, the need for excitement, adventure, and new experiences. This includes activities like hiking, exploring different cultures, or trying extreme sports. In short, relaxation is about resting the body and mind, while stimulation is about energizing and challenging oneself. Both motivations often guide tourists in choosing their destinations and activities.
Hello everyone, my name is Ashley S. Lizana, and today we're going to talk about Loton. Loton and River research highlights how visitors' attitude, resident perception, and market segmentation shape sustainable tourism and planning services. Their studies from 2002, 2004, 2005, and 2015 shows that tourists and residents hold a diverse view, from conservation-minded tourists to support of mass tourism experiences, from residents favoring the nature-based attraction to this conditionally supporting events like school weeks. These insights stress the need to tailor accommodation and services while incorporating the community feedback. Linked to the SDG, they support Goal 11, Sustainable Cities through Inclusive Planning, and Goal 8 of Economic Growth by aligning service with market needs. Goal 12 and Goal 13, Responsible Consumption and Climate Action via Sustainable Operation, and Goal 16, Strong Institution by fostering resident tourist trust, and overall shows that balancing visitors' motivation, resident views, and environmental responsibility is the key to the state's sustainable tourist development. And that's all, and I'm Ashley Eslazada. Thank you.
Sustainable development is a growth approach that meets present needs without compromising future generations. Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory outlines psychological, safety, love, belonging, esteem, and self-actualization needs. This study explores the relationship between the hierarchy of needs theory and sustainable development goals, SDGs, and tourism in the Chattogram context. It uses a descriptive qualitative analysis with secondary data from public and private sources to identify opportunities and challenges in the tourism sector.
In 1979, John Crompton introduced this theory to explain why people travel. He identified two main categories of forces that influence tourists: the push factors and the pull factors. First, the push factors. Push factors are internal motives that push people away from their home. These are psychological and emotional needs. For example, the desire to escape from the daily routine, the need for relaxation, adventure, prestige, or simply spending time with their family and friends. In short, push factors answer the question, why do people want to travel? Second, the pull factors. Pull factors are external motivation that attract people to a specific destination. These are the characteristics of place to make it appealing. Examples include natural scenery, beaches, cultural attraction, historical sites, events, foods, and hospitality. Pull factors answer the question, where do people want to go? To put it simply, push factors explain the inner desire to travel. Pull factors explain the choice of destination. In conclusion, Brompton's push and pull theory highlights the travel decisions are shaped both by internal needs and external attractions. Understanding this helps tourism professionals design better destinations, promotions, and experiences that connect with the travelers are really looking for.
Mabuhay! And this is Danica Victoria Sagit, and I will be discussing how Schmoll's travel decision-making model connects with travel stimuli and social determinants, particularly in relation to accommodation and other tourism services. Also, I will explain why all of these aspects naturally align with the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. According to Schmoll's model of travel decision-making, tourists are influenced by two main elements: travel stimuli and social determinants. Travel stimuli include push motives such as rest, escape, or health needs, and pull motives such as a destination's safety, reputation, quality of accommodation, or availability of services. On the other hand, social determinants such as income, age, culture, and family responsibilities shape how travelers evaluate these services and make their final choice. When we apply this model to accommodation, it becomes clear that a hotel or lodging is more than just a bed. It also involves safety measures like fire exits and locks, health provisions such as cleanliness and medical access, and communication systems such as Wi-Fi or multilingual staff. All of these directly influence a tourist's decision to book or not. While in other tourism services, for safety and security, studies show that travelers highly value destinations with visible security systems, emergency procedures, and crisis responses. These reduce the feeling of risk and increase a destination's attractiveness. For communication services, reliable information before and during travel is essential. Tourists look for accurate online details, effective crisis communication, and strong connectivity. This not only helps in decision-making stage but also ensures trust during emergencies. Lastly, medical services. It plays a crucial role, whether for medical tourism or simply peace of mind. The availability of clinics, first aid, and hospital access reassures travelers. Research shows that medical readiness strongly influences travelers' willingness to visit or stay in a destination. In short, when travelers make choices based on accommodation and other tourism services, they are not only responding to Schmoll's model of travel stimuli and social determinants, but also reinforcing the priorities of the SDGs. Sustainable tourism therefore becomes both a personal decision and a collective contribution to global development.
Planning and modification. Sounds familiar to you? Because according to Bansal and Isopt on 2004, tourists makes their travel decision through a process of planning and modification, where motivations such as relaxation, culture, or nature interact with constraints like cost, accessibility, and time. This means that the choices travelers make, whether in selecting accommodation or other tourism services, are influenced by both their desires and other practical limits they face. Now you know. Again, this is our group, and thank you for listening and watching our video, and we hope that you've learned some information regarding on the Sustainable Development Goals and its relation to accommodation and other tourism services. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay!